This is the Small Town Big Talk Show, the only place where you can listen in on real life conversations about the challenges and the joys of living in a small town. I'm your host, Rebecca Undum, and each week a guest will join me as we tackle one topic that more than likely we're all feeling or have thought about, but of course, no one wants to talk about. Let's chat. My guest on today's episode is Krissy Potucek. She is a holistic healing life coach, and she has just launched a brand new podcast called Holistic Healing. And I invited Krissy on the talk show to chat about gossip. Specifically, Krissy shares a truly incredible story of how she underwent something that I think would have been fairly traumatic for most of us to even imagine, and how she's taken that event, turned it into something, a force for good in her life, and has risen above and figured out now how to really own her worth, only surround herself with people that honor her, and she still lives in the same town where this event occurred. Tons of knowledge in here for all of us living in small towns. So of course, check it out and let us know what you think. Happy watching. We've talked a lot about how difficult it can be being a woman in a small town because of gossip.
Yes.
It's really damaging. It's really hard. You've maybe noticed, like, when women come into the Groove Seekers community, the closed Facebook group on Facebook, one of the questions I ask when they come in is, what do you find most challenging? And I swear 8 out of 10 women say either, something related to gossip or closed-mindedness, narrow-mindedness, that kind of thing, or feeling cliquey, feeling like you don't fit in, all of that stuff. So this topic is certainly timely, and it's certainly pertinent because it is one of the biggest challenges, I think, being a woman in a small town.
It is. And I'll go back even just from the specific topic that I'm going to lead into. I'll even go back to when I first moved here. I moved to a small town. I came from a small town. I moved to a small town when I was 15. And I was in ninth grade. And you want to talk about hard. That was hard. And so that is like my first earliest memory, because I left all of the girls that I grew up with, went to school with, from when I was little to moving to another small town almost 1,200 miles away, not knowing a soul, and jumping into, I was 15. And
it's a tough age anyway.
It was terrible. My ninth grade year was a very lonely. And then as I grew into this community, I started developing friendships and whatnot. But that gossip, I remember sitting in class, and obviously this was before cell phones and all that kind of stuff, getting notes from other girls, like how you'd write a note to your friend in class and pass it. Yep. I would get notes, just mean, bullying notes, like, why are you here? Don't talk, because I'm cute. I was a cute girl, back in high school. And all the guys were like, oh my gosh, who's that?
Well, and it's a new girl. That's a big deal for boys in a small town. Like a really big deal.
It was, and I'll never forget some of the notes I got passed to me, like, don't you talk to my boyfriend and all this stuff. So
I can only imagine how hard that was.
It was really hard. So I had to learn early on thick skin and not to take things personal, and learn that gossiping is something that I'll never want to be a part of. I am not one to gossip. I'll listen to what other people say, but then I turn it around and be like, well, what if something's going on with them? Because technically this situation doesn't mean that it's about you. It could be something they're projecting onto you because something terrible is happening into their life. How can we get to that point where we're sympathetic to the person that's shedding the gossip and realizing that there's something that they're lacking in their life?
Right.
So I learned that as I've grown up, but probably I'll segue into one of the biggest things that has happened to me was I was working in a small town radiology. I worked my ass off for this career. I went 2 hours away with a brand new baby, getting married, all of the things the year that I was accepted into the radiology program. And then I was able to transfer back up to East Grand Forks my last year and, graduated. So I really sacrificed a lot for this career. And I realized how much I sacrificed when this situation happened to me, and really was it worth it because of all the sacrifices that I did give. I feel like it was a stepping stone, but at the time I just, it was like, I was doing it for all the wrong reasons. I was going to college, doing everything for all the wrong reasons because it was what everybody else expected of me to do, and so I had a lot of anger, a lot of resentment for this program because I struggled. I was a brand new mom, brand new baby, young. I had Blaze when I was 20. And I'm, trying to figure all of this out. And then I go into my career and I killed it because I was very prideful of my career, very prideful. And I'm such a people person. My patients loved me. I did all of the things and I did it so well. So then when I got this opportunity to be a manager in a small town community hospital, I thought I had made it. I was like, I've made it. This is going to be my job for the rest of my life. And,
Krissy, I just have to quick say, like, I've had that feeling. Like, this is it. I've arrived.
Yes.
This is the culmination of everything I've ever wanted.
Right.
And clearly, like, we haven't gotten into even what you're doing now, but that's not what you're doing anymore. It's just, so real quick, I just want to point out, again, for like the women that are going to be watching this. First of all, we're recapping just a little bit because you covered a lot of ground and it's awesome. So first of all, you were doing things because you were externally motivated to do them.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Other people's expectations, other people's ideas about what you would be good at.
Yep.
Really are what contributed to you pushing so hard to get it done. But then once you get in it and you're really, really good at it, it is hard to separate, like, okay, so I kick ass at this, but your heart might be still longing for something else. And that is a very tricky thing that I don't think as like women as we're climbing ladders or getting off of ladders or whatever it is that we're doing in our careers, I don't think we talk about that enough.
No,
like,
I agree 100%.
You can't equate, success and being good at something with it's your calling and this is actually what you should be doing with your life.
Well, and it's funny that you bring that up because throughout my whole radiology career, as I kind of evolved as a woman, I became that person that everybody came to and to talk about health, wellness, because I was in that health and wellness space. I was running a 5K. I was training for all of those things. And there was like a small group of us at different facilities that I worked at that we all, empowered each other. But I became that person and I would always come to work early because I would at least have one or two, probably three people by my door by like the time that I was actually supposed to work that just needed to talk. I definitely was that person. Or I'd walk into the front office and I would just check in with the gals that, that we were training for, or, any recipes or all that stuff. And then they would come back and they're like, oh my gosh, you got to try this. So little did I know everything that I was doing in my career, quote unquote, was preparing me for where I am today.
And they were guideposts, right?
Yes.
Like little beacons of light that were, if you're paying attention. And I think that's the thing is that like, I had those things. I talked about them in my book, like all the little like moments where I was like, oh, that feels really good. Or people would call something I was doing a gift and it had nothing to do with my like formal work. So I just think it's so interesting. Do you feel like when you were going through that, do you feel like you knew that, or were you just like, well, this is cool? I mean, sometimes it's obviously hindsight's 2020 where you go, oh my God, why did it take me so long to figure that out? But sometimes you get it. Did you feel like you got it in the moment?
I slowly started to get it because it was like, the more I would talk, the more that I would help people. The more, it was from janitors that would come in and clean. We would have a, quick conversation to fellow nurses or fellow x-ray techs. It finally got to the point where they called it Krissy's Corner, Krissy's coaching corner, because it was just, I just had that safe space for them to really talk to me very candidly. And they opened up and shared more things. And so I felt needed. I felt wanted. I felt safe. I felt helping other people was amazing. I felt like they had my back. And it was a very good thing. And the more I did it, the more I started to crave it, I guess, is probably,
Sure.
you know. And then we kind of jumped into just some people that were very jealous of that. Very jealous of that. Very jealous of the fact that I was a mover and a shaker in my department. They gave me a project, and that was to bring in all of these CT, ultrasound, all that stuff, because we were getting it mobile and they wanted it there full time. That was their next, you know, step into this, moving this small community hospital forward. And I took it on like amazing because, and first of all, I'd never done anything like this, never been a project manager, never been anybody in this situation that, you know, did any of this. And I had to remodel, I had to go to the state, you know, all the things. We had to get quotes, we had to do that. I had to hire people. And so in a matter of the 3 years that I was there, I was able to do all of this and got all of this equipment in, all new staff, a whole new call schedule, everything. And that really put a target on my back for gossip, negativity, people that would treat me terrible as I would walk down the hall, people that started to turn me in for maybe I said something that they didn't like, so it got written up. It got to the point where I was unable to, I was so afraid to take call, in particular because one person really absolutely just had a bullseye on my back, and anything and everything I did, I would get in trouble for saying hi. I would get in trouble for not saying hi. Like, it got to that point where I was called into the office all the time because I was doing something that nobody thought I could do. Yep, I was one of the youngest employees there at that time. And so when I was creating all of this, people didn't like it. It created a lot of gossip because they were like, how is she getting all of this? How is she able to do this? And, you know, and so it started gossip that I was, you know, doing whatever with a doctor. It started into...
Did it really go there?
Oh, yeah.
The gossip actually became that you must be sleeping your way to the top of your department? Oh, that's shitty.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so shitty.
On, as I found out. And then, you know, when finally like kind of shit hit the fan, I mean, at this point I was taking anxiety medication. I was taking depression medication because it was doing absolutely nothing for my health. I was in the hospital 3 times with pneumonia. I was taken off the call list because I physically could not do it anymore. Like, the gossip was hurting me that bad that it was actually making me sick.
Okay.
That's how bad it was.
Right. Okay. So was this gossip contained to your work environment, or did it spill over into your community as well? Did you feel the effects of that out in your community as well?
Yes. After I was let go, I started
So
hearing...
they fired you?
Yes, they did. They gave me an ultimatum. They either said I could leave quietly or I could be fired. And I'll never forget that day. I had taken that Friday off to go down to Fargo for my monthly infusions for my RA. And I came back that Monday, and I was always there at 7 a.m. and administration had came in and brought me to an office. And I knew at that point it wasn't going to be good, but I never thought in my wildest dreams that it would have been what had happened. And so, you know, after many tears and walking out, and then kind of figuring out what the hell just happened, it was time to make that decision. Do I leave quietly, or, which was exactly what they wanted me to do, or do I stand up for myself and know what I did was right? All of the things that I did was right. And my first thing was patient care, and nobody could take that away from me. And it was that was a pivotal moment in this decision to turn this gossip back on them.
So how did you do that? And what did you do?
Yeah, I filed for unemployment, and I started... You
forced them to fire you is what you did, yes. Right? Instead of saying, oh yeah, I'm going to resign. Because
quietly.
Right. Yeah. There's just something about that that's like, I'll leave quietly, but you're going to have to fire me because this is bullshit, right? Like that feeling of just like, yeah, no, you guys are going to actually have to do the hard thing. I'm not going to make it easier on you.
Exactly. And I did not. Like, I got paperwork because they were contesting for the unemployment. They didn't want to pay my unemployment. So I got all of this paperwork. I think it was like 40 pages ish, somewhere around in there, that would go to a judge. And then I had time to rebuttal all of it. And as I was sitting there flipping through, and they had all the names of the people that came in that complained about me or gossiped about me, all the things. And I'll never forget, one of the things was that I flirted too much, that people were witnessing me flirt too much, or people were, saying that I was too whatever at a certain fundraiser and all this stuff. So it was just like, I'm reading this and I see the names attached to the comment, and literally I am just dying on the inside. Was
that the first time you had like the exact knowledge of who it was that was making these complaints? Oh God, Krissy, that must have been awful.
It was awful. I read through it. And I remember sitting there for probably about 2 or 3 days with that paperwork. And I just thought, well, you know what, they won. Like, how am I going to fix this? And as I was going through this, of course, it like blew up in the community, and, people were calling me, like the board was calling me, and just different things to like get my side of the story and all this stuff. And then I like hid for the longest time. I was afraid to go to the grocery store. I was afraid to go to the bank because I just felt like such a failure. I felt like, number one, I had let my family down. Number two, I'd let myself down. And I just was so embarrassed by this situation that, like, how could this have happened to me? Like, I worked my tail off. I sacrificed so much, and how I was so replaceable just because I was actually doing a good job at my job.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second, because one of the things that I think is super shitty about your situation particularly is that those things were never brought to your attention until there was 40 freaking pages of documentation. And I'll just say this, like, anybody that's running a business, anybody that's going to listen to this that's running a business and you have employees, if you have a problem with one of your employees, make it clear to them right away. People cannot fix something that they're unaware about. You had no idea that you were being perceived as being flirty. Then, and if somebody had just come to you and said, like, if your boss had pulled you aside and just said, I got this complaint today, here's what they said, let's talk about this because you're valuable and blah, blah, blah. Instead, it was just like, let's just build a case. Honestly, that is not just a workplace thing. It's a community thing. Me and my friend Missy being a transplant, we talked all about that on that episode about, like, you actually have a problem with somebody in your community and you don't just want to make their life hell, which is usually the case. Let's be real. Yeah. You actually have a problem. Take it to the person that can fix the problem. Exactly. It's just, so first of all, I just had to say that because I get super soapboxy about that stuff because they've created a culture then that people are afraid to be themselves.
Oh, exactly. Because I had a few communication with none of the direct employees that I hired would speak to me. I had no clue that they were even the ones that had backstabbed me, had went behind my back. And so I remember sending them text messages saying, I'm so sorry, I don't know what's going on, blah, blah, and I heard nothing. Well, then when I got all that paperwork and I saw all of the things that they were turning me in for, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, one of the employees, she basically, planned her whole wedding because she didn't have enough patience to do her work. And she planned her whole wedding, and I wrote her up for a couple times for that. And it's like, honey, you're here to work, not to balance your checkbook, not to, plan your wedding.
Got mad. She was a little pissed about that.
Yeah, got a little pissed, and then backstabbed me over that after numerous conversations. But the thing is I went to her first. And when things weren't changing, then that's when it was time to take another action step.
Right.
And that was never done to me.
Right.
I mean, I was called in the office for little things, but nothing for the things that they were accusing me of. One of my staff said, when she told me that she was pregnant, wrote or documented that I hope that her baby died. I'm reading this and I'm like, what? How in the hell would I say something like that?
Right.
Like, really? And it was,
I don't know, Krissy, you look like you want people's babies to die. I mean, that's what when I first met you, that was certainly, I was like, yeah. It's just, okay. So it's really, I mean, it's an incredibly difficult situation. And I'm praying that most of the women listening to this aren't dealing with gossip and turmoil and trauma on that level, or drama/trauma, right, on that level. Yeah. But the fact that you were in a small town, because how big is Warren? Like 1,500?
Yeah, somewhere around that.
And you were living in Warren, right, when this happened. Yep. So the idea of like not being able to go to the grocery store and not wanting to go to your kids' functions because you're just like, I don't want to see people, and I have 2 questions for you.
Yep.
One is, what do you think is really at the root of people's behavior when they do that? Okay, any kind of gossip. That's the first question. The second thing is, how did you move through it to get to where you are today?
Very, very good questions. First of all, I think a lot of the root cause of this gossip, and when I looked back at the accusations, I really got this like sense of, you know what, I'm calling bullshit on this. At first I was ready to give in because it was a lot to read. It was a lot.
I can't even imagine.
I don't think anybody that I know has never been in that situation where you're actually reading not legit, but their perception or and so when I was reading this, it empowered me to be like, you know what? No, they are not going to win. And I went into a mode that was like, you know what? No, we're going to rise above this. We're going to do this. And so I'll segue into this. So we had our meeting, and it was a judge on the phone, and it was their whole staff plus their lawyer, and then it was me and Joey.
You and your husband.
So we had this, it was just me and Joey, my husband, on this like phone conference call to decide whether or not I get unemployment. And I had rebutted everything that, that they had given me. So 40 pages went back of how they treated me, what their issue was, why I felt the way that they were doing all of this stuff. And a lot of it was simply jealousy of my work. And change in a small community is like ripping your skin off for them. It's a good analogy, Krissy. It is. And I was changing from the moment I stepped into that facility to the day that I left. I was evolving. I was changing. We were growing. And it was scaring a lot of people because they got very comfortable in their job because they knew their job. Their coffee break was, their lunch was at 12:30, and they were done by 2:30 in the afternoon. And I was adding more work for everybody because we were expanding and growing. So the people that had been there for 30, 40 years were like, oh, we actually have to work, right? Because they've been able to do what they wanted to do for that many years. So it was like, you know what? We're not letting her win, and it became very like a certain group of women kind of facilitated it all and then got everybody on board because, well, one, I think they were afraid of losing their jobs, and how do you
not being able to keep up with your pace, right?
Yes, not being able to keep up with my pace. And it was easier to jump on that bandwagon than actually stand with me on the other side.
You were their scapegoat.
Yes, it was the easy way out of actually standing up for someone that was actually being a leader, doing their job, and kicking ass while they were doing it. That was like, oh my gosh, well, if I do what Krissy's doing, then I'm going to get fired because that's not acceptable. Like we can't stand on our own and actually move this facility forward. So okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, no. So what? Just recently, my mastermind friends and I were talking about this kind of topic. So what I think this also is about is, so you said the word jealousy. I really think that when we find the courage, whether we're in our jobs, and then this, again, it rolls to your community too, because it was a position of some prominence in your community,
right?
So it became it became a community issue. Yeah. Oh, my cough. Hang on. I'm going to lose a lung here. Okay. I think jealousy is absolutely a part of it. And what we talked about in this little mastermind call was like, it's crazy when you get, whether you're young, when this happens, it happened to me as a young girl, where you start to get the message that your best is too much for us. And like, you're making other people feel shitty because you're excelling at something.
Yeah.
And damn it, if that isn't the worst messaging for young girls or middle-aged girls or women in their 20s or their 30s, that whole idea that we have to somehow shine less or dull it all down or just square peg round hole, all of those things, shave your edges, do those things so that other people won't feel so uneasy.
Exactly.
Well, that isn't living in a true meaningful way, right? So that's what I think it's about a lot of that. Like, we do big things, you excel in some way, and people go, oh gosh, like, well, I don't want to work that hard, so let's make her the problem.
Right.
So,
Exactly. And
what did you do? Like, what did you do? So obviously you fought. Did you win your unemployment case?
I did. It was Joey and I against like 5 people, and the judge only took a day. So like, we finished it, and then the next day I went online and I got an email that there was a verdict, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I was reading all of the things, and I started crying, and the judge so took my side. It was absolutely amazing. And I'm just like, yes. So, and it wasn't even necessarily even about the money. It was about me.
It's the principle.
It was the principle. And it was me standing up and not allowing them to control the situation anymore. Because I unknowingly allowed them to control this whole situation. And then once I figured everything out, it was like, oh, hell no.
Right.
No, you went up against the wrong girl here. And I got this power, and it was something that I had never tapped into really before. Didn't even know the strength that I even had until I went through this situation. And then it just changed the trajectory of my whole life. It made me realize and evaluate my friends. It made me realize that a career should not be what's the word I'm looking for? So overpowering of your life, because while I was in that career, a lot of my personal life was falling apart because I was bringing a lot of it home, or I was dealing with a lot of it, or I was stressed. So it was dominoing effect in my life, and it wasn't healthy. So realizing that I wanted a career that served a purpose and that gave me the passion, and I didn't feel like mentally and physically exhausted all the time, because that's really, really what radiology was for me. It was mentally, physically exhausting, and the drama,
and emotionally, because of the work environment and the fallout from that. So what have you done to get to a place, because you still live in your small town? Like, you moved, and this is why I was so excited to talk to you about this, because you went through something that, again, God willing, most of us won't experience on that level, because that's really freaking hard. And yet, the easy thing would have been to look at your husband and be like, we're getting the hell out of here. I can't do this. These people suck. Everything sucks. Let's burn it all down and just move, right? But you didn't. No. So how are you now not only protecting yourself, I guess, but honoring yourself so that you feel free to live your fullest, living your best life, Krissy, like being Krissy, like showing up as you really are, and being like, whatever you think about it, you're either for me or you're against me. That's like, if you're with me, great. But if you're not, great. I'm gonna, love the willing and leave the rest, kind of a thing, right? Like it's a very hard place to get to. So how on earth did you do it?
Well, this has been a process. I think it's been about 10 years now since I was at this facility. So it's been an ever-evolving process. And then just really being very honest with myself. I think for me, the biggest thing was forgiveness. When I got through all of the emotions of anger, frustration, and embarrassment, and all of the things that kind of came with it, once I worked through that, And then we did move out of town, which helped too. We moved
Right.
out to the farm. Not everybody has that opportunity, but I started to just, once I won the case, I felt like that was a big shift for me. So I started to go out more. I started to just be Krissy and hold my head high, because really that's all I could do at that point. And then slowly, as time went on, I got more validation from previous board members that they didn't realize how bad it was and exactly what I was going through. They were only painted the picture that was for them, not my picture. And apologies came out, you know, all of the things. But at that point, the damage was done. But then as I started evolving and kind of like coming into where I'm at today, some of that started with the MLM that I was previously associated with, and realizing that personal development was something that I needed to add to my daily routine. And I was not a book reader. I'm like a talker, a doer, all that stuff. So books were like, what? I'm going to listen to books? Like, no. And as I was working at part-time, I started listening to Audible books and all that stuff. And as I was evolving and growing and realizing, forgiveness started to happen. That layer of that onion started to happen. And then realizing that this job was just not meant for me. It was a stepping stone. It was a vessel. It was little, like we talked about earlier, little bits and pieces of the universe showing me what I was really capable of doing. And then just really stepping into that as I evolved. And what was really amazing about this whole losing my job was I got to spend a year and a half with my mother-in-law, taking care of her because she was sick. And then we tragically lost Joey's parents. I think it was like 4 years into losing the job. And so I got to take care of her on hospice. I didn't have to take off time from work. I got to be more present with my family, and it was just an amazing gift. I didn't have to choose a career over that, because at the time I think that would have been really hard to choose that, you know. And it just gave me that freedom to just really expand my wings and share all the things they're doing, and then really taking care of myself. For that whole time, it was career, family, mother, friend, and then my health was like way at the very bottom of that totem pole. And so it was time to finally take care of myself. And so now, doing all the work, investing in myself, investing in health coaches, investing in life coaching, and then going to my accreditation for Institute of Health, Integrative Health. I'm at where I'm at today because of that. And I look at that whole situation as a blessing. It was a blessing because it shook my world enough to realize that I needed to call bullshit on this, and that I was meant for more.
Right. Oh, I think this is going to be such an empowering chat for women, because I'm telling you, Krissy, I think, well, I've never been, like, you and I worked together a few years ago. Where you have come and how far you have come. I'm so proud to know you doing what you're doing in a very small town. Like, you're in a kooky field. I put total air quotes around that, because I think like people don't get it. Right. So you also have that whole thing to kind of contend with, but when we can get to a place where we're really self-assured, meaning we know what we rock at, we know what we suck at, and we're just accepting of all of it. And then you only surround yourself with the people that honor those things, everything gets better. I think, like, you get to this place where you acknowledge and somewhat accept that not everybody's going to be for you.
Exactly.
No matter what the situation, because I, as a people pleaser by nature, I find that to be really hard, right? I want everybody to like me.
Yep.
And realistically, though, that is a crazy, silly thing to actually expect out of people. Why would I be for everybody? Why would you be for everybody? It's just about being super mindful about whose opinion gets to, which ones matter. Yeah. And so I just think it's such an amazing story. And I honestly, I can't wait to hear what people say about this one, because man, that's something really, really serious to have gone through. And now, like, looking at where you're at now, being able
Yeah.
to look back and just say, it all happened like it was supposed to, because this has
It
developed you into the woman that you are.
Exactly. I hold space for that. I honor that. And I look at the people that, you know, were in my situation, and kind of ironically, none of them are there. Like all of them have left after that whole situation. And so I find it kind of ironic too, that it's like, you know, what goes around comes around. And I hate to really use that vindictively, but I also use it as, you know what, when you hurt people the way that I was hurt, then it will come back at you. It's time to, instead of hurting people, instead of gossiping about people, let's get to know them. Let's honor them. Let's try to figure out what's going on and support them and help them and empower them. And if all of those things would have happened to me, it would have been a very different situation, but none of that did. And I was just on a client call the other day that she's going through a very similar situation. And it's like, I, at that point, look at that situation of boundary setting. Boundary setting, so like for the woman that is listening to this, and if you are in a similar situation, setting boundaries for yourself, that A, you're not going to people please, B, you do not have an open door policy for people to come in and just vent all the time. For one, it's distracting. Two, it's not your place. And three, you can't fix their problem. They need to take ownership of their problem.
Right.
That is where I look at my situation, as I was that revolving door for people to vent. It got me fired up. It got me, you know, like wanting to take action. And then when I did take action, I was left hung out to dry. So you have to be very mindful of the boundaries. And then realizing that work is Krissy work. Like when I come in to do my client stuff, that is when I put my Krissy coach on. I put, you know, all of the energy and all that stuff. And it's the same with an outside job. You go in, you put that hat on, you do your job, and you walk away. You leave it at the door. When it starts to spill over into your life, then that's when you need to start reevaluating your situation. You know, this job serving a purpose? Am I here? You know, why is this spilling into my life? What do I need to do the work on within myself? Instead of trying to blame other people for the situation that you're in, you know?
Right. Oh, that's so helpful. And so the last thing that we'll leave everybody with, you just touched on it. So have you read, you're not a reader, but you're reading them now, like you're into reading now. Have you read Brene Brown's Braving the Wilderness?
Yes, I have.
What you just talked about was, she specifically says that it's hard to hate people close up.
Yep.
So, you know, because judgment is something that I think all of us struggle with. You know, I look at how a mom might be doing something, and right away that feeling of wanting to judge her, not maybe verbally even, but like in my head, it comes up, right? Well, instead of deciding to go that direction, if I really want to understand what's going on with her, I've got to get to know her. If I don't want to get to know her, then shut up about it. Right? That's what it comes down to. Like, get to know the people. There are things going on with everybody that we have no clue about.
No. And if we were to take that judgment out of the equation and really get to know that person, or if we don't want to get to know that person, maybe hold space for that person of like love and caring and being like, you know what, honey, I totally get, because I am not a perfect parent, you know, like thinking that in their thought and holding space for that person to, they may not even know anything about it, but it'll start to shift in within you when you hold space for a judgment-free zone, because we've all been there where we have not been the best parent. We have not, you know, and it is not our place to judge that woman or that dad or whatever it is. It's just not, it's not our place. And it only starts that comparison, like, oh my God, I would never do that. Why would you want to even go down that road of comparison? And I often look at comparison too, or, you know, gossip as a mirror. As a mirror of maybe something that we're lacking in our lives. Why are we judging this person? Why are we saying, oh my gosh, I would never wear that outfit? Why are we doing that? Is it a confidence issue that we're dealing with in ourselves?
More than likely, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or is it something deeper? And that's really where the healing starts to happen, and the forgiveness starts to happen. And then ironically, then your worth elevates. Your self-worth elevates to another level when you can hold space in a loving, judgment-free manner for the people that you're surrounding yourself with. Your worth is like, it just starts to electrify, you know, and you shine brighter, you feel better, and you're more positive and happy, and you feel like you can handle a lot of situations, you know, that are thrown at you, because that's what life's all about, is how do we deal with this situation quicker and faster and not letting it affect us so deeply.
Right. Amen.
Drop the mic.
Amen. Yep. Dropping the mic.
Okay. If there's one thing I hear from women more than anything else that are living in small towns, it's that sometimes we can just feel downright lonely. So grab your copy of the Small Town Survival Kit, where you will find a couple of options for people to connect with and ways to feel not so isolated, because I promise you, sister, you're really not alone in this.